Naomi stared at the business card on her kitchen table. Black cardstock, silver embossing. No title, no company name, just a phone number and two words, Kong De Ho. Beneath it, in handwriting so precise it looked mechanical. She asked for you at bedtime. The limo ride home had been quiet. Armored car, tinted windows, leather so soft it felt like skin. The air inside smelled of something sharp and expensive, cedar maybe, or gunmetal. Soo-yeon had fallen asleep against Naomi's arm within 10 minutes. Her stuffed rabbit crushed between them, small breaths fogging against Naomi's sleeve. Nas Daeho had watched them from across the seat, not staring, studying. The way someone watches a locked door they've been trying to open for years, and then a stranger walks up and it just swings wide. He told her the story without self-pity, without softness. Clinical, like reading from a file. His wife, Minji, was killed during a targeted attack on his family 2 years ago. A message from a rival syndicate. Bullets through the windows of a restaurant not unlike Yongsan. Minji had thrown herself with Soo-yeon's body. The girl survived without a scratch. Her mother bled out on top of her. Soo-yeon stopped speaking that night. Psychiatrists from Seoul, Tokyo, Berlin, New York, Daeho said, play therapy, art therapy, music therapy, equine therapy. I flew in a specialist from Geneva who charges more per hour than most people earn in a month. His jaw tightened. Nothing. Naomi's throat ached. Then you knelt down in a hallway. He continued, voice dangerously even, and she gave you 2 sentences. I'm not a therapist, Naomi said. I know what you're not. His eyes held hers across the dark cabin. I'm interested in what you are. The car dropped her at her building, 5th-floor walk-up, stairwell that smelled of mildew and sesame oil, a lock she had to jiggle 3 times before it caught. She leaned against the door once it closed and breathed. Her phone had 14 missed calls from her mother. She didn't need to listen to the voicemails. She already knew. Gloria Carter operated on a single frequency. Need. Send money. I'm behind on rent. You owe me for raising you. The same woman who'd gambled away Naomi's college fund, then called her ungrateful for leaving. The same woman who hadn't asked a single question about Seoul, about the visa, about whether her daughter was safe or happy or alive in 11 months of phone calls that were really just invoices, dressed up as conversation. Naomi deleted the notifications. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown Seoul number. A text. I know where you live now, Naomi. Derek. Her blood went cold. Derek Hayes, the boyfriend she'd fled Chicago to escape. The one who told her she was nothing without him and then proved it with his fists. 2 ER visits. 1 fractured orbital bone. A restraining order he violated twice before she decided paper couldn't protect her, and an ocean might. He found her. Naomi slid down the door, knees to chest, pulse roaring in her ears. The apartment was dark. The ceiling had a crack that looked like a river viewed from space. She'd stared at it so many nights, she could trace it with her eyes closed. Then the business card caught the light on the kitchen table. Silver letters on black. She asked for you at bedtime. She called the number at 11:47 p.m. Not because she was desperate. She was, but that wasn't why. She called because Soo-yeon's face, serious and soft, fingers pressed to Naomi's wet cheek, was the only thing in the last 11 months that hadn't felt like a transaction. Daeho answered on the first ring, like he'd been waiting. He laid it out the way she suspected he laid out everything. Directly, without decoration. Move into the guest quarters of the Kang compound, spend time with Soo-yeon. Mornings, evenings, whatever felt natural. No medical protocols, no therapy scripts, just be present. In return, visa sponsorship handled by his legal team. A full salary as Soo-yeon's companion. And security that would ensure Derek Hayes and Gloria Carter never reached her again. Naomi was quiet for a long time. The crack in the ceiling stared back at her. What's the catch? No catch. There's always a catch with powerful men. His pause lasted a beat too long. Then lower, rougher. The catch is that my daughter smiled tonight for the first time in 2 years, and I would burn this city to the ground to see it again. Naomi closed her eyes. She believed him. That was the terrifying part. One condition, she said. Name it. I work, I'm a pastry chef. I'll cook for your household, for Suyon, whatever you need. But I earn my place. I don't take handouts. Something shifted in his voice. She couldn't see his face, but she heard it, a flicker of respect crossing the line like static. Done. And I leave when I choose, not when you decide I'm done being useful. Silence. You have my word. She didn't fully believe that part. But at midnight, alone in a crumbling apartment, with a stalker in her city and a mother bleeding her dry from 8,000 miles away, belief was a luxury she couldn't afford. Survival she could. The compound. She arrived the next afternoon in a black sedan that smelled like new leather and silence. Armed guards at a gate that opened before the car had fully stopped. A house that looked less like a home and more like a fortress pretending to be architecture. Concrete, glass, and gardens that felt like controlled wilderness. Every tree placed with the precision of a chess piece. Suyun was waiting just inside the front door. Pajamas, bare feet. Bomi the rabbit dangling from one hand. She ran before the housekeeper could finish the welcome sentence. You came back. Third sentence. Third sentence in 2 years. The housekeeper's hand flew to her mouth. A guard standing at the base of the staircase looked away and blinked hard. Naomi dropped to her knees and caught the girl mid-launch. Small arms locked around her neck. Bomi's rabbit ear poked Naomi in the eye. She didn't care. Of course I came back. Daeho stood at the top of the curved staircase, arms at his sides, face unreadable, carved from the same stone as the walls around him, but his hands, hanging loose at his sides, were trembling. Naomi met his eyes over his daughter's shoulder. Something passed between them. Not romance, not yet, not even trust. Recognition. The quiet, exhausted acknowledgement of two people who'd been carrying weight alone for so long they'd forgotten their shoulders could straighten. Later that night, Naomi lay awake in a bed softer than anything she'd ever touched, staring at an unfamiliar ceiling, listening to the silence of a house where nobody was trying to break down her door. Her phone buzzed. Derek, found your new address, sweetheart. Rich boyfriend can't hide you forever. She turned the phone face down, but she didn't run. 5 days in, and Naomi had a rhythm. Mornings, Suyon perched on a stool at the kitchen counter, flour on her nose, helping Naomi roll croissant dough while narrating elaborate adventures starring Balmy the rabbit, who, according to Suyon, was secretly a spy. The girl spoke in full paragraphs now. She described Bomi's mission in vivid detail, complete with sound effects and dramatic pauses that would have impressed a theater director. But only when Naomi was in the room. The moment anyone else entered, she went silent, like a radio switching off. Daeho's men reported it with the same careful neutrality they probably use for surveillance briefings. The housekeeper confirmed it. Even the night nurse, who'd been with Suyon since the incident, shook her head. Only for her. Naomi read to Suyon every night. They drew together, sprawled on the living room floor with crayons that stained the marble, and nobody cared. Suyon drew the two of them, stick figures with wild hair, holding hands under a yellow sun. Naomi taped it to the refrigerator. Daeho stared at it every time he passed. He never said anything, but his steps always slowed. It was midnight when Naomi padded to the kitchen, unable to sleep, craving tea and silence. Daeho was already there, not in his suit. Black t-shirt, hair undone, the sharp architecture of his public self dissolved into something rougher, more human. For the first time, she could see the scars. Thin white lines crisscrossing his forearms, one deeper mark near his left wrist that looked surgical. He didn't hide them. He just hadn't been showing them. Couldn't sleep? He asked without looking up from the tablet glowing on the counter. She shook her head and moved to the kettle. They existed in silence for a while, comfortable or close to it. Then Naomi said what she'd been thinking since the first night. Everyone assumes you chose this life. He looked up. The suits, the guards, the empire, they assume you wanted it. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted, like a door being tested from the inside. I didn't, he said. My father built this. I inherited it at 22 when he was killed, shot in his own parking garage by men who wanted his shipping contracts. He set the tablet down. I've spent 12 years trying to make it legitimate. Legal businesses, real estate, the foundation. But the past doesn't wash clean. The men who killed Minji, they were sending a message to me, punishing me for trying to go straight. And Suyon, his voice fractured, just for a second, a hairline crack in stone. Suyon paid for my father's sins. Naomi's fingers tightened around the mug. And you've been paying ever since. He met her eyes raw, unguarded. The most dangerous man in Seoul, sitting in his kitchen at midnight, looking like a person who hadn't slept properly in 2 years. I break, he said quietly. I just make sure nobody's watching when I do. Naomi recognized those words, not because she'd heard them before, but because she'd lived them. Every night in Chicago after Derek left and the adrenaline faded, every morning in Seoul when she smiled at customers who wouldn't look at her face. Breaking alone was a language she spoke fluently. She opened her mouth to respond when a sound tore through the house, a scream. Not a child's startled cry, a raw, guttural, animal sound of absolute terror, coming from upstairs. They ran. Up the stairs, down the hall, into Soo-yeon's room. The nightlight cast pink shadows across the walls. Soo-yeon was under her bed, pressed against the far wall, shaking violently. Eyes wide, unseeing. Her mouth was open, but the screaming had stopped. What replaced it was worse. Silence. The same silence that had swallowed her for 2 years. The night nurse stood in the doorway, pale. A guard dropped something in the hallway, a loud crash. Naomi was already on the floor. She crawled under the bed, slow, careful, not touching, just close. She could feel the heat of the girl's terror radiating off her skin. She didn't speak. She started humming, a lullaby her grandmother used to sing on the porch in Georgia. Wordless, low, the kind of melody that lived in the bones rather than the ears. Seconds stretched, a minute, 2. Soo-yeon's breathing slowed. Her rigid body softened just a fraction. A small hand, trembling, reached through the dark and found Naomi's. Don't go, she whispered. Nowhere, Naomi said. I'm right here. Daeho stood in the doorway. His face was a mask. Perfect, composed, and not a crack showing. But his eyes were shattered. Completely and utterly shattered. Like a man watching his child drown and not being able to reach the water. The next morning, Daeho was all business. Walls rebuilt, suit pressed, every seam of vulnerability stitched back into place, like it had never torn. He met Naomi in his office, a room that smelled of leather and old paper, and laid documents on the desk between them. Your visa expires in 5 weeks. Derek has filed a false police report in Chicago claiming you stole $12,000 from him. If Korean immigration receives the American warrant, you'll face extradition proceedings. He paused. Your mother has also contacted the Korean Immigration Bureau. She's claiming you're working here illegally and demanding they investigate your employment status. Naomi's chest went cold. Her open mother. Daeho continued, voice flat, factual. A marriage would solve the visa. Spousal visa, immediate legal protection. My lawyers can use it to block Derek's extradition claim and your mother's interference. Naomi stared at him. A fake marriage to a crime boss, to a businessman with a complicated past. That's one way to describe it. He stepped closer. It protects Soo-yeon too. If you're family legally, no court can remove you from her life. Not Derek, not your mother, not immigration. She searched his face. And when it's over, he didn't flinch. You leave with everything you need to start over. No strings, no obligations. Her chin lifted. I have conditions. His mouth almost moved, almost. I'd expect nothing less. She outlined them. She works, no exceptions. She keeps her own bank account. She maintains the right to leave whenever she chooses. No waiting period, no negotiation. And Soo-yeon is never, under any circumstances, used as leverage to keep her there. He agreed to everyone. As she turned to leave, his hand caught her wrist. Not a grip, barely a touch, a pause. Naomi, she stopped. Thank you for crawling under the bed. The space between them compressed. She could smell cedar and something darker, smokier. His thumb rested against her pulse point, and she knew he could feel it hammering. Naomi! Soo-yeon's voice sailed down the hallway, bright and urgent. The croissants are burning. They stepped apart. Neither acknowledged what had just crackled through the air, like a live wire touching water. Naomi sat in her room that evening, looking at a new drawing Soo-yeon had made that afternoon. 3 stick figures this time, Naomi with her braids, Soo-yeon with Bomi, and a tall dark figure labeled Daddy, all holding hands under a sun. At the bottom, in shaky kindergarten letters, one word, family. The marriage certificate was filed quietly on a Tuesday. The tabloids found out by Thursday. The headline hit like a fist. Kang syndicate heir marries foreign woman. Underworld shaken. Beneath it, a grainy photo of Naomi entering the compound. The comment section was a sewer. Speculation, racism, and venom churning together in a toxic soup that Naomi couldn't stop scrolling through, even though every word drew blood. Gold digger, scandal. How much did he pay her? She's not even Korean. What kind of example? Disgusting. Daeho took the phone from her hand and set it face down on the nightstand. They feed on reaction. Starve them. Easy for you to say. They're not calling you this. I know what they're calling you. His voice dropped. And every outlet that printed it will issue corrections by morning, or they'll lose their advertising contracts with every Kang-affiliated business in Seoul. His eyes were calm. His tone was lethal. 3 days later, her phone rang, a number she recognized like a scar. I'm in Seoul, baby. Derek's voice was slurred, triumphant. Saw you on the news. My Naomi, married to some Korean gangster. Upgraded, huh? You always did aim above your station. What do you want, Derek? What I've always wanted. What's mine? I was never yours. You owe me. I made you who you are. You put me in the hospital. You fell. Twice? He laughed. The same laugh that used to freeze her blood. I'll be in touch. Tell your husband I said hi. She hung up. Her hands were shaking. Daeho read her face the way he read everything, quickly and completely. He's here. She nodded. He made one call. 20 seconds, then, my men will find him within 48 hours. He won't get near you. You can't just, I can. He met her eyes, and I will. The same week, Gloria Carter sold Naomi's childhood to a Korean entertainment blog for $15,000. The headline, Ungrateful Daughter Abandoned, Struggling Mother to Chase Korean Billionaire. The article was a masterwork of fabrication, painting Gloria as a devoted single mother bankrupted by her selfish daughter's abandonment. Bank records told a different story. Every dollar Naomi had ever sent home, documented, time-stamped, gambled away within days of receipt. Daeho's lawyers prepared a counter-release. Then came the charity gala. Black tie. 500 of Seoul's most powerful people gathered in a hotel ballroom that glittered like the inside of a jewel box. Naomi wore emerald green. Soo-yeon had chosen the color, pointing at the swatch with absolute authority. This one, it matches Bomi's eyes. The dress was simple, elegant, and fit her like it had been made for her body specifically. It probably had been. She entered on Daeho's arm. Heads turned. Whispers followed like exhaust fumes. An older woman approached. Mrs. Huang, wife of a shipping magnate. Champagne smile, viper's eyes. She looked Naomi up and down, the same way Choi had at restaurant Yongsan, but with better jewelry and worse intent. How charming, she said. Daeho's little project. Tell me, dear, is it true you were a waitress? Or was it something less respectable? The room held its breath. Naomi's chin lifted. But before she could speak, Daeho stepped forward. His voice didn't rise. It dropped. The temperature in the room dropped with it. Mrs. Wang, your husband's company holds 3 shipping contracts with the Kang Group worth 200 billion won. Would you like to keep them? He paused. The silence was surgical. Then you will apologize to my wife. Now. Mrs. Huang turned the color of wallpaper. She apologized. Daeho led Naomi to the dance floor without another word. Something slow, his hand low on her back, her head against his shoulder. The room dissolved. You didn't have to do that, she murmured against his collar. Yes, I did. He tilted her chin up. Her breath hitched. This wasn't in the arrangement, she whispered. I know. He kissed her. Not rehearsed, not performed. Real. Soft at first, exploratory, like a question neither of them had planned to ask. Then her fingers found his collar, pulled, his hand slid into her hair. The kiss deepened into something that tasted of champagne and recklessness and 2 years of loneliness ending at once. When they broke apart, the room was watching. Neither of them cared. In the car home, Suyeon asleep between them, a crayon drawing of 3 people dancing clutched in her small fist. Daeho's phone buzzed. His expression hardened. Park Jun-sik just bought the building your old apartment was in. His voice was quiet. He's sending a message. What message? That he knows where you were, and that he wants me to know he knows. Naomi's stomach dropped. The call came at 3:17 a.m. Naomi knew before she answered that something had broken. Lieutenant Yun was the one who told Naomi good morning every day. He bowed slightly when she passed, held doors, remembered that she took her coffee black. He was also the one who'd been feeding Park Jun-sik the compound security rotation, Soo-yeon's therapy schedule, and Naomi's daily routine for 6 months. Daeho received the digital forensics report in his office at dawn. His face went gray, not angry, not surprised, something worse, betrayed in a place he'd thought was fortified. How long? He asked. 6 months, sir, before Naomi arrived. His fist came down on the desk. The wood cracked, not fury, grief. 12 years of brotherhood, weaponized and sold to the highest bidder. If you believe that love can be found in the most unexpected places, hit that like button and subscribe. This story gets even more intense, and you don't want to miss what happens next. It happened on a Tuesday. Suyeon in the compound garden with her nanny. A maintenance van at the gate, pre-cleared on Yoon's authorization. 3 men, 3 minutes. That was all it took. Naomi heard the nanny screaming before she heard the alarm. She ran through the kitchen, through the garden doors, out into the sunlight. The garden was empty, a toppled watering can, scattered crayons, and Bomi, Suyeon's stuffed rabbit lying face down on the grass. Naomi picked it up. Her hands didn't shake. Everything inside her went cold and still and focused, the way it used to in Chicago, when Derek's footsteps came down the hall and she had 3 seconds to decide whether to hide or endure. Survival mode. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Daeho arrived within minutes. She had never seen a human being look like that. Not angry, not panicked, emptied, like someone had scooped everything out of him and left only a weapon behind. His eyes were flat. His voice was a frequency she'd never heard. Low, mechanical, stripped of everything human. I'm getting her back, he said. I know, Naomi said, and I'm going with you. No. She'll be terrified. She'll go silent again. I'm the only person she talks to. You need me there. He stared at her. Every muscle in his body screamed refusal. Then he nodded once. Intelligence came fast. Derek Hayes was the liaison. Park had needed someone connected to Naomi, someone whose presence would keep Daeho's security focused on the wrong threat. Derek was paid to escalate. Every text, every call, every appearance in Seoul, all of it was misdirection. Keep the guards watching the stalker while Park's men moved on the real target. Naomi felt the air leave her lungs. Her own nightmare had been the distraction. Her fear, weaponized against a child. Derek's text arrived like poison. Told you I'd be in touch. Your little girl is fine, for now. Tell your husband to back off Park's territory or she stays gone. Naomi showed Daeho. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes died. She went against every order, arranged the meeting through an intermediary, a bar in Itaewon. She walked in alone. Derek sat in a corner booth smirking, a beer sweating in his hand. There she is. Came to beg. She didn't sit. She placed a drive on the bar. Hospital records, police reports from Chicago, phone recordings, your communications with Park, your payment records, every dollar, time-stamped. She met his eyes. You go near that girl again. Near me. Near anyone I love. This goes to Korean prosecutors, American federal agents, and every news outlet on both continents. You will be the story, not me. His smirk cracked once I'd say, You think you scare me? She leaned in. I survived you. What exactly do you think I'm afraid of now? She walked out. Behind her, his chair scraped the floor, but he didn't follow. Daeho's men found Suyeon in an industrial building 40 minutes outside Seoul. The raid was surgical. 12 men, no sirens, no warning. Daeho went in personally. Naomi waited outside. Not because she was told to, but because she understood something with the clarity of a woman who'd spent 5 days crawling under beds and humming lullabies. If Soo-yeon saw her father walk through that door and carry her out, it would heal something no therapist could reach. The minutes stretched like years. Then Daeho emerged. Soo-yeon was in his arms, face buried in his neck, body trembling, fingers white-knuckled in his collar, alive, whole. She lifted her head and saw Naomi. Mommy. The word split the night open. Naomi ran, took her from Daeho's arms, held her so tight she could feel the girl's heartbeat against her own chest. Wild, fast, alive. Soo-yeon clung to her, shaking, crying, and for the first time in 2 years, speaking through her tears instead of drowning in silence. Over Soo-yeon's head, Naomi met Daeho's eyes. I love you, he said, raw, wrecked. His voice scraped like gravel. Not because of the arrangement, not because of what you do for her, because you walked into a bar alone and faced the man who broke you, for a child who isn't yours by blood but is yours in every way that counts. Naomi's tears fell. She is mine, she whispered, and so are you. He pulled them both into his arms. The three of them standing in a gravel lot outside an industrial building, surrounded by armed men and sirens approaching in the distance. It was the ugliest, most beautiful moment of Naomi's life. But the morning brought one more knife. The Beck family, Soo-yeon's maternal grandparents, filed an emergency custody motion. Claims: criminal household, the kidnapping as proof of unsafe environment, and a foreign wife with no legal standing as primary caregiver. Their lawyer was funded by Park Jun-sik. Their character witness was Lieutenant Yun. Daeho's jaw worked. They're using my daughter as a weapon. Naomi straightened. Then we end all of it. Tonight. She opened the encrypted files she'd been building for weeks. Everything. Yoon's communications with Park. The financial pipeline from Park to the Beck family's legal fund. Derek's payment trail. Gloria's fraudulent immigration claims. A map of every person who had tried to tear them apart, connected by money and malice, and the assumption that two people who loved a child wouldn't fight back hard enough. She handed the drive to Daeho's lawyer. Release it. Every outlet, every prosecutor. The lawyer hesitated. This will be public, all of it. Good, Daeho said from the doorway. They made it public when they took my daughter. By dawn, Seoul's power structure shifted. Park Jun-sik was arrested on a Wednesday morning, still in his bathrobe, coffee in hand. He didn't even have time to set the cup down. His empire collapsed under the weight of exposed financial crimes, kidnapping conspiracy, and 12 years of corporate warfare laid bare. Lieutenant Yun was detained before noon, his assets frozen, his 12-year tenure with the Kang family ending in handcuffs and silence. The Baek family's custody motion was thrown out when the judge saw the funding trail. The most cynical abuse of family court I've seen in 30 years, he said from the bench. Derek Hayes was arrested by Korean police that evening. Extradited to the United States on outstanding warrants Naomi's file had triggered. He didn't smirk in the mugshot. Gloria Carter's immigration claims were dismissed. Naomi's legal team filed a restraining order that spanned 2 continents. The last voicemail Gloria left before the order took effect was 3 minutes of silence, followed by a click. She had nothing left to say. Every villain. Neutralized publicly, completely. 3 weeks after the rescue, Soo-yeon spoke to someone other than Naomi for the first time. It was the housekeeper, Mrs. Kim. Soo-yeon tugged her sleeve in the kitchen at 7 a.m. and said, "Can you make Mommy's croissants? She's still sleeping and I'm hungry." The entire kitchen staff froze. Mrs. Kim burst into tears. A guard standing by the door turned away and pressed his hand over his mouth. Daeho got the call in his office. He put his head in his hands and didn't move for 10 minutes. When he came downstairs, Soo-yeon was eating a croissant, not as good as Naomi's, she informed anyone who would listen, chattering to the housekeeper about Bomi's latest spy mission. He knelt beside her chair. "You're talking. To Mrs. Kim." Soo-yeon gave him a look of supreme 5-year-old exasperation. "I've been talking, Daddy." She bit into the croissant. "You just weren't listening." That evening, the garden, Cherry blossoms in full bloom, petals drifting like pink snow, fairy lights strung through the branches, a table set for three. Suyun was already there, in her favorite yellow dress, bouncing on her toes with an excitement she made absolutely no attempt to contain. "It's happening!" she shouted the moment Naomi stepped outside. Daeho was on one knee. No audience, no cameras, no spectacle. Just the garden, the lights, and the man who'd terrified an entire city looking up at her with the most unguarded expression she'd ever seen on his face. Naomi Carter. His voice was steady, but his hands, holding a small velvet box, were not. "I married you on paper to keep you safe. I want to marry you for real because you're the bravest person I've ever known. You walked into my world with nothing and gave us everything. You taught my daughter to speak again. You taught me to break where someone could see." He swallowed. "Marry me, not for a visa, not for protection, because I love you, because Suyeon loves you, because this family only works with you in it." Suyeon whispered loudly, cupping her hands around her mouth like a tiny director. "Say yes, mommy." Naomi laughed through the tears that were streaming down her face. Yes. He rose and slipped the ring on her finger. Simple, platinum. An emerald flanked by two small diamonds, one for each of them. 3 stones for 3 people. He kissed her, slow and deep and certain, the kind of kiss that didn't need an audience because it wasn't a performance. Suyeon threw herself at both their legs. "Family hug." Daeho laughed. Actually laughed. The sound startled the birds from the cherry trees. The wedding was small. The compound garden transformed. Naomi in white, African print details woven into the bodice, a nod to her grandmother's quilts, to the Georgia porch where lullabies lived, to every root she'd thought she'd lost. Daeho in black, simple, devastating. Suyeon as flower girl, scattering petals with the enthusiasm of someone who'd been rehearsing this moment in crayon drawings for weeks. Blended traditions, a Korean bowing ceremony, a hand-fasting court in green and gold, vows spoken in English and Korean, practiced and imperfect and real. When the officiant asked if they took each other, Suyeon shouted, "They do!" before either of them could open their mouths. The reception was small, trusted people, no press, no rivals, no ghosts. At some point in the evening, Suyeon tugged Naomi's dress, the tug that always meant something important was coming. "Mom," Naomi knelt. "Yeah, baby. Remember when you were crying in the hallway and I found you?" Naomi's throat closed. "I remember." "I'm glad the mean man was mean to you." Naomi blinked. "Why?" "Because if he wasn't mean, you would have gone to the kitchen for your interview. And if you went to the kitchen, you wouldn't have been crying. And if you weren't crying, I wouldn't have talked to you." She paused, and her eyes, those enormous dark eyes, were the most serious thing Naomi had ever seen. "And if I didn't talk to you, you wouldn't be my mom." Naomi pulled her into her arms. The sob that broke from her chest was not quiet or elegant or controlled. It was the sound of a woman who had spent 27 years surviving and had finally been allowed to live. Over Suyeon's shoulder, Daeho stood a few steps away. He wasn't even trying to hide the tears. Later, on the balcony, Seoul sprawled below them, glittering, restless, the same city that had told Naomi it didn't serve her kind. She leaned against Daeho's chest. His arms settled around her like they'd always been there. "We made it," she whispered, "and we did." She tilted her head up. "A racist waiter. That's where all of this started." He kissed her temple. "Remind me to send him a thank you card." She laughed. He didn't. But he didn't let go either. Somewhere in the city, headlines had already moved on. Scandals faded, empires shifted. But here, in this quiet pocket of light, a pastry chef from Chicago and Seoul's most feared man had built something unbreakable. A family, a future, a forever that started with 2 small words from a little girl who hadn't spoken in years. "Don't cry." And she never had to again. My lovely viewers, thanks for watching till the end. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, and click on the notification bell for more exciting stories.